Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Friends of the Farm lecture series. Each session is designed to deliver a small and in-depth dose of cannabis education. My name is Candace Hawes, and I want to thank all of our viewers and customers for joining us from the pharmacy, from the pottery, and from the natural healing centers, as well as all of our friends joining us from around the world. Today's episode is extra special because I'm joined by my friend and my colleague, Steven Contreras. In a previous episode of this webinar series, we've had Dr. Iggy Trin on to review scientific research being conducted about cannabis and cancer. We've also had another webinar about breast cancer and cannabis. And today we're going to talk to Steven about using cannabis in his post-cancer journey and recovery. Mr. Contreras serves as the senior manager of brand and retail marketing at Glasshouse Brands. With a profound commitment to community service and activism, Mr. Contreras brings a rich history of advocacy. As a cancer survivor and member of the disabled community, he uses his experience as a below-the-knee amputee to uplift marginalized voices. Serving as the Community Outreach and Media Director for the Long Beach Collective Association, also known as the LBCA, he spearheads efforts to advocate for all licensed and legal cannabis operators in the city of Long Beach. In addition to his leadership roles, Mr. Contreras imparts his expertise as an instructor for the groundbreaking cannabis certificate curriculum at Long Beach City College. From 2020 to 2024, he has developed and taught 8 courses, equipping aspirational professionals with the knowledge and skills essential for success in the evolving cannabis workforce. Following his passion for sustainability and education in the cannabis industry, Mr. Contreras also serves as the vice president and co-founder of Remedium Cannabis, a pioneering 501c3 nonprofit organization, which is actually really cool, that works in like the cannabis recycling, space, which is really, really cool. And was really interested to learn about. So I'm really cool. That's really cool. And I love that you're working in that space. So he does many different things in the cannabis space. Thank you so much for being with us today, Steven. I've known you for quite a while now. I've seen you accomplish so much in this space. I've been really, I think that you're a really inspirational person. So I'm really happy to have you with us today to talk about this topic, to talk about your journey in your cancer recovery, and, to talk about how much, how you've, accomplished so much, and, to talk also about, how cannabis has helped you in, your athletic achievements, and, also like how you learned from other people, like in the athletic, I don't know if I want to say like industry really, or like field, and like how you learned how cannabis has helped them in like their recovery and development, and inspired you. So I'm really excited to really like get into it, because I really think that you've accomplished so much, and you really haven't let, the things that you've experienced, hold you down, but it's really helped you like grow, and you've helped mentor and like, lead other people. So I'm going to pull up our slides here. But yeah, so again, I'm really so excited that you came to work with us at Glasshouse here. So let's just start like really at the beginning. So can you start and tell us about your story? Now, I know that you were diagnosed with cancer when you were just a young child, right?
Yeah. So before anything, I want to give you your flowers, Candace, because when I stepped into the cannabis space, everyone said, you need to meet Candace, you need to look at Candace. And I just want to give you your flowers here, as someone who looks up to you and who is blessed to be your colleague. It is an honor. It truly is. But yeah, so my journey with cannabis and kind of my quote unquote story both start with cancer when I was 15 years old. So in 2009, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. And before we get into the story, a little bit about me: cancer survivor, left leg below the knee amputee. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a stoner nerd. I love cannabis. I love talking and educating about cannabis, and I love how it can heal everyone. So looking forward, I was, in 2019 or in 2009, I was a 15-year-old tri-sport athlete. I played football, baseball, and rugby. They threw me on the soccer team as well. But sports was my entire life. It's how I coped emotionally. It's how I coped physically. Sports was everything. Sports is what's taught me how to be a team leader, how to work as a team, how to uplift people. So sports is rooted in who I am. But that really came to an abrupt halt when I sustained a injury from baseball. I just sprained my ankle. I thought it was very basic. I'm an athlete. I sprain my ankle all the time. But it just started happening where I'd sprain it, and then a week later I'd sprain it again, and then 2 weeks later I'd sprain it again. And then it wasn't until football season where I was tackled running the ball, and I lost feelings from my toes to my hips and my left leg. I couldn't move it. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't put weight on it. I was like, cool, it's broken. Like I can now figure out, I can now move forward because I was just spraining this weak ankle. When I came home after that practice, I wasn't getting any better. The pain wasn't going away and the swelling wasn't going down. So we decided to take me to a urgent care. We went in and they took x-rays. The doctor looked at the x-rays and said, I need to send you to a specialist. He didn't tell us what it was. He didn't tell us what he saw. He goes, just this, I need to send you somewhere. So later on, we found out that he thought it was a tumor, but that wasn't his specialty, so he couldn't make a diagnosis. So he sent me to a specialist in Torrance. That specialist said, oh yeah, that's a tumor. I'm going to send you to UCLA to the guy who wrote the book on bone tumors. This gentleman is retired now, but within one day, so on November 24th, I went into UCLA to get scans, regular scans. I thought it was going to be some blood work, but I got the whole 9 yards. I got blood work, x-rays, a PET scan, a CAT scan, MRI. I got a biopsy done on my left ankle, all from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Then they said, okay, we'll call you after Thanksgiving. This was 2 days before Thanksgiving. The day after getting home, so the day before Thanksgiving, they called and they said, yeah, what we saw is you have cancer. You have a tumor, Ewing sarcoma in your left ankle. And after Thanksgiving, the day after, that Friday, you need to come on in and get ready. You need to be admitted. You're going to start your cancer treatment. And so it really happened that fast. And I had an aggressive cancer. So I had Ewing sarcoma. That cancer is either locally for 6 months or in like 72 hours, it could be systemic. So if you don't catch it within this 6-7 month period, you could have stage 4 cancer before you know it. So I was very blessed in that
Yeah.
sense, but I had a very aggressive treatment. I went through a total of 14 rounds of chemotherapy. And after my fourth round of chemotherapy, I went under amputation. So on March 5th of 2010, I got my left leg amputated below the knee, essentially changing my journey forever.
Mm-hmm.
And due to me being young and so committed to getting back into sports, I really took this as it wasn't an end all be all. I was in the hospital room listening to the doctors tell me, okay, you can have traditional surgery and we'll maybe get 80% of the tumor removed, or you're going to have a below the knee amputation. And at 15 years old, I was like, I know what the word amputation means, but
Yeah.
I don't, not me. That doesn't make any sense. And so I looked up amputee athletes, and I ended up finding a lot of people that I'm blessed to call my peers and my friends who do Ironmans and triathlons and are Olympic athletes that all have disabilities. And I said, if they can do it, I can do it. And I really embraced everything that I had to do. And I just said, this is just a bump in the road. It's part of who I am. It's never going to define me. I don't let being a cancer survivor label me. It's just part of my identity. It's not who I am. As long as being someone who lives with a disability, it's just part of my life. I still do things that everyone else does. I still have to put on my shoes one leg at a time. And I wish I got discounts on shoes, but it was just part of my life. And I was blessed because I was only 16 years old. Kids have an amazing ability to recover from any kind of illness and injury. So it was really just bouncing back. The one thing that made my story particularly unique is that I had a blood clot in my heart during this treatment because they put in a metal container called a portacath that receives the chemotherapy, and then that ended up as a foreign object to my body, and it started a blood clot. So during that treatment, I did have to undergo blood thinners, and then I had the amputation. And so my healing process just from amputation to getting into a leg, aside from fighting cancer still, was longer than the average person. So I got my leg amputated in March, the beginning of March. I didn't get a leg, or I didn't even be healed enough for a leg till June. That's because when you go through chemotherapy, it's literally poison entering your body and it's killing all of your cells, good cells, bad cells, healing cells, all of it. So that was, again, part of the journey that I didn't really expect, but it made it a little more difficult and really introduced me to chronic pain. And that's kind of the bottom point, is like, before life, I didn't know what pain was, and now I wake up in pain every single day. So, it's not saying, "Whoa, me, I wake up in pain." It's more so that that is just a card that I was dealt, and I use cannabis as a tool to get out of pain. I don't ever lean on it as, "Oh, I want to be Mr. 420 and I want to be the highest person in the room." No, I just want to not be in pain when I have to go throughout my day. I wake up and I'm probably at a level 7 pain. I smoke a joint, I eat some edibles, I go down to a 2, and I can just do every productive thing. So, challenges I experienced besides that was mental. Like, there was times where, you just don't want to continue. So at 15, I was completely pulled away from school. I didn't have my friends. It was the first time that I felt that I didn't exist. And it's a very weird feeling. But it made me like, why am I doing this? So at 16, I told my parents, I don't want to do it. I'm giving up. I don't need to do it anymore. And it was only because I found out other people didn't complete all of their treatment. However, unfortunately, a lot of those people who didn't complete the treatment ended up passing away 3, 4, 5 years down the line due to cancer. So, although I made a very tough decision to amputate my leg at 15, I ultimately saved my life. And I looked at the cancer in my leg, I looked at the tumor in my leg as something that was trying to kill me. That was the only way I could look at it. Like, it's not my foot anymore. That foot wants me dead. So
Yeah.
let's cut it off. And I was blessed that by doing the amputation and by doing such an aggressive chemotherapy, the necrosis of my tumor from the doctor was 99.9% dead. So necrosis means how successful the cancer was the treatment was at killing the tumor. And legally, you can't say 100% because cancer can always come back. But
Mhm.
we did the damn thing, and I was blessed, and it was ultimately the right decision. And from there, my entire life going forward has been adapting and finding ways to, I like to say, compete out into the urban jungle with everyone else. And so I just am blessed that I get to wake up and I get to work with cannabis and talk about and educate on cannabis. So it's a very awesome thing. But me being a cancer survivor, being an amputee, being a minority, really kind of set up me to, break stigma, especially advocate for cannabis, because minorities are the ones who were demonized because of cannabis. Cancer patients deal with acute and chronic pain all the time, and then people with disabilities are always in pain. So, one last thing, during that treatment, it is where I was introduced to Miranol. So I didn't consume cannabis until I was 18 years old. However, I was going through a really, really rough treatment one day, and they said, "What do you want to try?" Like, I didn't want to take more morphine. I didn't want to do certain things, and they said, "Well, here's Miranol." And I said, "What is that?" They're like, "It's like THC. It's like marijuana." And I'm like 16. I'm like, we'll see. And so I try it, and it is the worst experience that I remember to this date. It was on top of having a bad treatment reaction, having Miranol was not a high. It
Mm.
didn't feel like a euphoric high. It felt groggy, cranky, angry. I was foggy. My mind was foggy. I didn't like it. So it really deterred me from any type of cannabis. I was like, if that's marijuana, if that's weed, and you guys like that, it's just not for me. Like, I know this now. And so, unfortunately, I turned away from cannabis. Obviously, I was still underage, but I really dove into ibuprofens. And as being an athlete, I was like, okay, I'm going to be in pain for this practice, or I'm going to be in pain for this game. Let me take six ibuprofens. Let me pop like 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen and just be able to play this football game. And then at the end of it, come back and take more so I can go home and recover. And I did that up until I was 18 years old, and I was playing at a very high level of competitive rugby. And the guys, my teammates, they saw me after practice take off my leg and pour out my liner and pour out pools of blood. And they were like, "What are you doing?" Like that's one, disgusting, but two, it just looks painful. And then they saw me grab my bottle of Advil and I was ready to take a bunch. And one of the guys, luckily, he was like, "Yo, don't do that. Come smoke." And I was like, "I don't smoke. Like it's cool. Like it's fine." He goes, "Nah, come smoke." And I wanted team bonding, and then I was like, you know what? Maybe let me try it. Maybe the Miranol wasn't the real thing. Let me try this, and I thoroughly enjoyed consuming, and I felt relieved. And it was the first time where I was in a significant amount of leg pain, and then I realized my back felt great. And then
Mhm.
I realized my neck felt great. And I said, wow, like I'm just overall, I feel fantastic. And I was just beat up for 2 hours in practice. And I kind of didn't look back. I decided that this is something that I wanted to embrace. And so I started going to local trap shops in my neighborhood and understanding what the game was and understanding weed. And I knew nothing. I knew nothing. I it's so crazy to see how far I've came from the beginning of being a consumer to even being scared to go in a dispensary to believing that I was going to be put on a list to do all these things. So that's where it really started, and I was blessed. I'm blessed, and from there, from dealing with cancer, I was introduced to the Sunshine Kid organization at 16 years old. So at 16, I was awarded the opportunity to go on this expenses paid trip. This organization takes kids out of the hospital and puts them on a 5-star trip for a week. I did a local one, and it was a shorter one. It was here in Long Beach, but an example is they took us to Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland, Aquarium of the Pacific, the Wax Museums, Hollywood, and these are all kids from all over the country getting 5-star treatment. But was great was I was 16. I was overweight from steroids. I was missing a leg. I was missing all my hair after having a full head of hair. I didn't have eyebrows, and the kids on this trip, they didn't care what was going on at home, in the way that they just wanted to love you. They just wanted to be your friend. And that's all a 16-year-old needs when they're going through cancer, is just a friend. And I was given a family. And so the Sunshine Kids, they gave me the opportunity to be a national spokesperson. So I
Oh,
went all over the country and started advocating and talking about how this organization helps all these cancer kids. And that gave me my real introduction into nonprofit work. At 16 years old, I understood donations, I understood tax write-offs, and I really got the inside look at it. And that's what really prepared me for everything else down the line, which is I never would have imagined at 16 years old. So that's we'll kind of go to the next slide.
yeah. Well, first, I have to say first, Stephen, that is such an amazing story, and thank you for like sharing that with us. I can't imagine like what that must have been like to have to go through that as like a 15-year-old, and like how strong that has made you today. That experience, and that's just really great. And I'm sure that today, that do you still work with like can with children's like cancer with children's cancer charities and
Yeah, so I'm still very involved with the Sunshine Kid organization. Anytime they call me out, I volunteer at their events. I was just with one of the board members at a UCLA basketball game a few weeks ago. I deliver food to any children who are in Miller's Hospital that have a tie to the organization.
Stephen will be right back. I'm sure he just got knocked off just for a couple of seconds here. Um, but yeah, this reminds me sort of similarly to my story. And sometimes it's like those things that happen to you that are seen as like negative things or bad things that happen, put you on the track that you're meant to be on, to help people. Let me put Stephen back on here again, and to help people and to do things much better, bigger things, and to do bigger things and help people. Sorry, Stephen, you just got kicked off for 1 second, but I was
It's
just
okay.
telling them that sometimes, and I was saying like relating it sort of my story about how I lost my financial aid and I ended up going to jail for a possession charge. but it turned me into the activist that, I needed to be, to, found my normal chapter, to change the laws, and to, help people, negative things, bad things that happen, turn us into the activists or the people that we need to be so that we can help other people. And it's sort of very much similar to what you've had to experience in your life, and that, you've been able to like become such a much stronger person and to help other people, and, develop all these wonderful tools. And like you said, you've learned how great cannabis can be, to help people as like a medicine, and severe pain, and dealing with like cancer, and so like bringing us to like activism. So did you want to kind of like add to that statement before we talk about LBCA?
Um, so it kind of ties in the next part. We can go to the next chapter, but cannabis and activism. When I was 18, I went to I was blessed to go to the University of Colorado at Boulder. If people don't know, Boulder is a very party city, but it's also very cannabis heavy. There is an event called a blackout game where all the students go to a football game to get blackout drunk. And I ended up wanting to get high at the end of the game. And I stood in a dorm right in the center of campus. And I decided I wanted to go smoke a joint under the stars. And I went out to the middle of the field, me and my roommate, and we lit up. And right away, we got lit up by the cops. So, and I don't know why I didn't think about it. It's so dumb now that I always look back, but I got busted. And that was my first experience with a cannabis possession charge, possession of cannabis and possession of drug paraphernalia. My roommate was his name is Austin Coors, direct heir of Coors Industry, direct line, and he got away scot free. So we were together, but he got away. I just love telling that story. But
Figures, right?
that made me really push into, why is this plant bad? Like, why is my future, back then, future ruined because I wanted to smoke this plant, and it helps me, and I don't want to go get blackout drunk like everyone else. So that's what led me into it. So I was like, all right, I need to figure out why this plant is bad. And since I've already been arrested for it, let's fully dive into it and see, not arrested, but I was given a ticket, but let's see what this really is about. And so that led me into cannabis activism, and eventually, leading to the LBCA, because at that time I was really exploring entrepreneurship, really exploring what it meant to network, what it meant to build relationships. And I got the opportunity to interview with the president of the LBCA. He's also the owner and founder of Long Beach Green Room, the first dispensary in Long Beach. And I'm always going to be honest. The first question he asked me, he said, "What do you know about weed?" And I said, "I'm not going to lie to you. Besides me smoking it every day," I said, "I'm not an expert, but I said, I can learn anything." And he goes, "Okay, what about policy? What about nonprofit work?" And he aligned, and he goes, "All right, well, I'm not offering you a job, but I'm offering you an unpaid internship for 3 months." And I said, "Okay, let's see what it is." So I interned for 3 months. And within that month, they told me, "You need to understand Long Beach cannabis better than anyone in Long Beach." So I spent my entire 3 months reading policy, reading legislation, having to understand and create a learning curve for legal terminology, and then also understanding how to educate the community by destigmatizing cannabis in the war on drugs. So I started hitting the streets. After the internship, I was offered a position as a community outreach, just as a community outreach rep, and I did that. And we started doing cleanups and neighborhood cleanups and expungement fairs and food distributions and a bunch of other events that were just being that reliable source of cannabis education and cannabis information in Long Beach when there wasn't really anything. So we started going to neighborhood councils and talking about cannabis and educating. And I want to highlight why this is so important, not just in Long Beach, but in any community in the world. You need to educate because the misinformation is so wild. There was an elder lady who was so mad that there was a cannabis testing lab in her neighborhood. She said, "I can't believe you are allowing this. How are you just going to allow people to go into this store and sample weed?" She thought you could test the cannabis products at this cannabis lab. So she thought it was a consumption lounge. So being able to educate and say, no, this is science. This is making sure that it's safe, making sure that there's no pesticides. And she goes, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not mad anymore. So, and
Yeah.
that doesn't happen just once. It happens all the time and everywhere. And that's why I say everyone needs to just, prepare yourself with the tools to just have these micro interactions with people and educate them. And I always tell people in the community, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just a messenger. I always encourage people to do their own research. I always cite my sources. And you can never argue facts. People try to argue that cannabis is a gateway drug or the number one gateway drug, when in reality it's nicotine and caffeine is the biggest gateway drug in the world. So being able to do that, and then through the LBCA we started changing policy. So in 2019 we were successful with reducing cannabis taxes by a total of 15%. It was from across laboratories, distributions, and manufacturing. It went from 6% tax to 1% tax. This allowed people to open up businesses, allowed people to hire more jobs, and it allowed this infant industry to have a little bit more breathing room to survive to the next step. And so
Mhm.
that was really big. It was a huge win, but was only one thing. We've advocated and educated policymakers on the need for consumption lounges, the need for cannabis events. That alone will bring in tax revenue. And then in when COVID hit, we really were the most proactive industry partner that the city had. We created all these COVID protocols and said, this is what our members are doing. This is what the industry is doing. Yes or no? And in that fiasco, if everyone can recall, it was like the world was ending. So they said, thank you for doing something, cannabis industry, just do it again. So we were able to show that we can bring in more money by lowering taxes. We created more tax revenue instead of just decreasing taxes. And then we
Mhm.
were able to be a partner to collect more tax money as essential workers and the cannabis space. So that whole ordeal was really unique and crazy, but very impactful to see that if you educate your policymakers, educate the constituents, and educate your council members, you can get a lot of stuff done. But it's just rooted in education, 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 and then data. If data to support everything.
Yeah.
And through that, we started doing more outreach. We held an event called High LBC, which
Yeah.
was a
Mhm.
cannabis social and education mixer. And there's a picture right there with Candace from
Yeah.
my second High LBC where she was on the panel. We started those in 2019 and we just ended them in 2023. So it was a great chapter. But the LBCA is a um, 501c4 nonprofit organization, and it is a community of business. It is a community of business owners that act as one voice to move cannabis policy. So my members consisted of cultivators, manufacturers, distributors, laboratories, retails, delivery licenses, marketing agencies, security companies, anyone that has a stakeholder in Long Beach cannabis or in cannabis in general was part of my organization, and we voted, and we have these people who ask for our political endorsement come to our meetings and talk to the policy and talk about policy that they want to change and talk to these owners and operators and ask for an endorsement, which is very different because 10 years ago any sort of policymaker didn't want to be caught
No.
anywhere with a cannabis person. So now we have these politicians coming to us, which is such a 180. And it's a great thing because now we can properly move policy and properly create this industry to thrive. Because right now we all know that it's teetering on a
Yeah.
thread right now, but we believe in the vision, and I still believe that cannabis is going to be a $1 billion industry. I believe that every single person is a cannabis patient, whether they know it or not. So I think this is great. There's a
And you
picture.
guys are even
Go ahead.
highly respected in this city. I mean, LBCA is a respected and partner that collaborates with the city. I mean, I know that the city council members, rely on you as a partner to gather information and when they have questions. And I believe that even a former city council member served on your board, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not currently, but in the past. So, you guys have gained that respect, and you guys have done a great job under, you working with them. And I know Pam is one of your colleagues, and I love
Yeah.
and respect her immensely. So, you have done wonderful work with them, and we're lucky to have you working with us as well. So, and I mean, that all comes from, your experience being a true patient. And I think
Yes.
that experience, has helped you in, your activism, and then working in the cannabis industry, because you can, relate to patients, and, only being a true patient and have living that life,
Yeah.
you like build on, that experience. So, it's just all very, very exciting. So, um, so
There's
yes,
only there's only one thing I want to touch on, which was
please.
by far the coolest thing that I've ever got to experience to date is creating a curriculum and seeing it all the way through into
Oh yeah,
fruition
the
with Washington
college.
City College. So um, in 2019, we started creating this introduction to cannabis curriculum. And the ideal isn't to teach someone how to go and get a license. It's how to prepare someone to join this workforce, because people think they're going to come into the cannabis space and smoke a bunch of weed and
Yeah.
hang out and it's going to be a blast, when cannabis has the most
Mhm.
regulations, the toughest regulations out of any industry. We have a microscope on us at all times. So with that, we created an 8-week course. It takes you across every single license in the space. So meaning cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, retail, laboratory testing. I'm the instructor for cannabis waste and cannabis marketing. So it takes you through everything. And then the last week is workforce development, where we sit down with an HR professional. We teach you how to craft a cannabis resume, including trap work experience, including traditional market experience, and then all the other professional tools that you can include. And then the second part of that class is a hour free consultation with a cannabis lawyer. You get to ask any questions, whether it's about a future business you want to start, whether it's about a previous case study. This lawyer gives you the full 1-1. Her name is Kelly, and she's awesome. But that has been by far the coolest. We started that in 2020, and we are going on our 9th course next month.
That's cool. I love that too, because it explains that there's many different ways that you can enter the industry. It's not just for 21 to 25-year-old attractive young people. You can enter it,
Yeah.
later in your life with professional skills as an accountant. There's many different ways that you can enter the industry, and we welcome everybody, not just those entering in the early stages of their life. So that's really cool that you guys have developed that. And that's just another great service that you guys have provided to the community. So really, really cool. So I love that the work that you guys have done at the LBCA. So just another really, really cool thing that you guys have done. So I know that as part of the LBCA, you guys do a lot of patient education as well. And so I know that you've probably, leaned on the experience that you have, being a patient yourself. So I know, like, you talk about, like, you wake up every day, with a certain level of pain. One of my good friends, Jackie, lives with high levels of pain herself. And she says every day she wakes up with like a level of like at least, 7 to 10. I even, wake up with her like moaning in the night. She just every single day she lives with pain, but she's still like one of the most happy, pleasant, positive people that I'm around. And I would say pretty much is like similar to you. You're never in a bad mood, or you're always positive and happy. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you do for your cannabis regimen, and like a little bit about like the
Yeah.
dosages that you currently use to treat your medical condition?
Absolutely. So as you said, I wake up in pain. A traditional day is the first thing I do is I work out. That's just the time that it happens to work for me before I start work and before life does what it does. But the first thing I do after a workout is I consume cannabis. Whether it is a joint, whether it is a dab, whether it is a blunt, anything that I do to kind of relieve the inflammation. That's how I look at it. My body's inflamed throughout the night. My body gets inflamed throughout the workout on top of the pain. So now I just want to bring my body to a natural homeostasis. And then if I'm about to edit in front of a computer, I'll probably take minimum 50 to 75 milligrams of an edible to really get me creatively thinking, but also to relieve my hips. So as an amputee, I'm always going to be a little lopsided
Yeah.
in life. and that affects my hips, and that's day in and day
So
out.
your opposite hip that, that your other
Uh-huh.
hip that bears all of your weight then?
Yeah. So it's that little lower lumbar is always in pain. So even if I'm sitting down or if I'm driving a long way, my back hurts. So that's how I dose with that. But I'd say I consume consistently throughout the day. I've always been an advocate for no lazy stoners. There's no like, yes, an indica, a really sweet terpy indica, can really get you super relaxed and into couch, but it isn't gonna inhibit you from doing anything in life. You just got to learn to adapt through it and consume responsibly. If I know I'm going to have a meeting with our VP, I'm not going to consume cannabis before. I'll probably consume it after with him, but I won't do it before our meeting. But I love concentrates. I love dabs. I love rosin. I love wax. I smoke out of an electric Carta, an e-rig. But I will acknowledge this, and I think everyone needs to acknowledge this, especially as a cancer patient. Any smoke in the lungs is bad. Doesn't matter what it is. I know I said I smoke and I enjoy it, but that's something that I do acknowledge. And I'm not saying that smoking weed is best for anyone. I'm saying cannabis, with the right delivery methods, is beneficial for everyone. So regarding my leg specifically, my residual limb, I put on CBD cream almost every other day, and that's to, one, keep my scar from pulling, just to keep it healthy and moisturized.
Hmm.
Also to give it a little bit of relaxation, but I don't ever feel relieved from pain with CBD. I just know that it's an inflammation aid for me, an anti-inflammatory. So that's why I really use that. But I'm a big fan of THC, and then also I really love some THCV and some CBN. Those are perfect. Help with focus for the THCV, and then CBN puts me out like a baby. I love our sleep gummies from Plus. So I would just say everyone needs to start low and go slow and take a journal.
Yeah.
When I first started, there was no way I could ever eat 100 milligrams and consider going anywhere, which is now a normal practice. Or I couldn't smoke a joint and then do a very large project, or smoke a joint and do a presentation, or anything like that. So I would just say that if you consume cannabis, consume responsibly. You're an adult. Don't make
Mhm.
it an aid. Don't make it it's not a scapegoat for any negative behavior. It's just like anything in moderation. But um, I would say for someone who wants to start with cannabis, don't even try don't try smoking a joint, don't try smoking a blunt, don't try having a huge edible. I would say take a small bite of an edible, maybe pack a bowl if you want to smoke, try a whole syringe of tinctures, whatever is going to work for you. But you have to journal, you have to try different things, because cannabis affects everyone differently, and more likely than not, you will not have the same effect from product to product to product. Everything's going to affect you differently. So I say, if you want to try it out, you don't need to be in pain. Cannabis helps. Cannabis heals. If you are in pain, your body is not meant to be in pain. That is a response from your body saying, I want to be balanced. So um, consume cannabis responsibly, and I think that kind of wraps that one up for me. Unless
Yeah.
you have any questions.
No, I think that's great. Those are a lot of really good tips. And what it sounds like too is like that you use multiple methods and that you will like stack those methods too. Like don't be
Yes.
afraid to like stack, and like every day's different.
Mm-hmm.
Every person's different, which is very, very true. And like it's the tricky part of cannabis, but also like the fun part of cannabis because it makes it different. It's not like pharmaceutical medicine where it's like everything the same,
Yeah.
it's like the joy of cannabis is that it's fun, it can, it's
But
very
that's what I like to tell people too. Like, if you're looking at it for pain, remember you can also get recreational effects. It really comes down to, what are you looking for? Do you want to have a relaxed night out where you don't have social anxiety, or are you just trying to relieve your pain so you can sleep through the night? All of those things matter. And like you said, it's not like pharmaceuticals. It's not like if you take an Advil, I take an Advil, we're going to feel the same
yeah.
relief. If you smoke a joint and I smoke a joint, we're going to have different giggles or different smiles or different thoughts.
Yeah.
throughout the time. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
love
was
it.
explaining to a couple, line of tinctures and the ratios, and this one might, treat your pain, but it has more CBD than THC, and so you might not, feel any psychoactive effects, and this one has a little bit more THC, and so it'll help with your pain, and then you might, feel a little bit of intoxication, so you might feel light and happy and smiley, and so he's like, oh, she doesn't want that one, she just wants to feel the relief, and she's like, well, what's wrong with feeling a little
Yeah.
good and happy too? And I was like, you're right. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's
Yeah.
right. There's nothing wrong with taking care of the pain plus feeling good and having a smile on your face. So,
It's cool to smile.
yeah, you can have both. So, I like that. So now kind of talking about the glass house brands, like, which I know that you have on this slide, probably the ones that you enjoy. So you kind of want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, no, so like I said, I consume all cannabis.
Yeah, me too.
I
No haters here. I love them all.
no discrimination. But if I want to do some brands that aren't glass house, I when it comes to flower, I really love Green Dragon, great indoor flower, cultivated and extremely affordable. Green Dragon actually is the one cultivator that created a strain. They don't have it anymore. It's called D33, but that was the best high I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
Where I
wow.
remember it perfectly. I remember how I felt. I remember looking around, but D33 was my best high ever. And they've sold that strain, so it's now somewhere else. But I love cannabis, and I say I don't discriminate, but all of my products on here are more indica based. So I definitely like the heavier ones. But going down the list, I really love our kerosene from Reform. Reform is a social impact brand led by Weldon Angelos. They sell amazing indoor flower, and kerosene just hit the spot for me.
Yeah, the
And I
good nose.
very good nose, and it's very sticky. It's just what you're looking for. And I prefer indoor weed over all other weed. I love glass house sun grown weed too. So
Mhm.
greenhouse, glass house, all the houses, I love them. But plus, if people haven't tried our plus gummies, our plus flow gummies, they have THC, THCV, as well as caffeine and natural nootropics. I love them. They taste good. They're dosed properly. 5 milligrams of THC, I believe.
Mhm.
2.5 milligrams of caffeine. It's just awesome. And then if I'm going into our GHF products, my favorite gelato in the world will always be Gelato 41, and then cross it with some animal mints. It's going to be super delicious and minty. But that's my favorite product right now coming out of Glasshouse Farms is that Gelato 41 cross. And then we do have Field. Field is a product that I've known about since 2017, and I've always liked them. So being able to come and work for Glasshouse with Field was honestly one of the greatest things because I could sell Field all day long without even getting paid for it. So if you haven't tried the garlic and bananas, that is just the best. We held a dab bar as Field at High LBC, and I say every single person gave garlic bananas the top sample there. So if you haven't tried that, I highly recommend it. But we have a plethora of amazing products. I love our new Allswell pre-roll pack. Very
Mhm.
convenient pack, 7 grams, ready to go. Super affordable, has a great cylinder shape. So whether it's flour, rosin, or edibles, you can kind of find me hoarding them all.
Yeah. Yeah, like I can play in this product in the category, all these products all day long. I love the field too. Like I have so many of those little field dabber sticks. I feel like I can build
Yeah.
myself a house. I'm like so many of them. I'm in the plus family too, like the plus tart cherry, the 20 to 1 to 5, 1 milligram THC, 20 CBD, 5 CBG. I give so many of those things away all day, like they're Advil, Stevens.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, you got a headache, you got a backache. I'm like, take one of these, take one of these, take. I give them away like they're candy, like all day long because they're so low dose THC. Everybody will try them, and like if I'm like anxious or anything, if I take 5 of those suckers, like that's like a mega dose of. I'm like
Yeah, yeah.
so calm, like like a monk on a mountain.
That's what
But
everyone says throughout the entire state. As I visit all 10 of our retail stores, everyone says the best selling plus product is our tart cherry. So,
yeah, the 20 to 1 to 5 because they're so low dose and You can give them to everybody. Everybody loves them. It's almost like taking a vitamin, like a multivitamin.
Yeah.
But yeah, all great products, and thanks for sharing those suggestions. So that's really cool. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit also about your weightlifting and like all
Yeah.
of your athletic activity, because when I'm on TikTok, in the gym as well, like I said, I'm watching you work out, so it's pretty funny. And I was also wondering, and I think this is probably true, but so the reason that you do, so much athletic activity and you stay so in shape and you work out, is that part of your post cancer recovery? Is that why you stay so in shape? Is that you want to, keep your body strong and to have like control? And do you want to talk like a little bit about that, like why
Abs-
you think it's so important for you to
Absolutely.
stay so in shape, and how cannabis helps and aids in that? And you
Yeah.
want to talk a little
So
bit about that?
So for me, going backwards a little bit, when I was 15, I was a tri-sport athlete, very in shape. I'd say maybe 170 pounds, very athletic. And then after chemotherapy, after all the steroids, in 1 year, I weighed 260 pounds. So I had a complete shift physically. I didn't know who I was. I couldn't identify with that same athlete before, and I couldn't get back onto the baseball field or the football field or any kind of field if I didn't get back to that athletic shape. So, um, and then also being in a hospital for so long, or being in a wheelchair, or being on crutches, I just wanted to move. I said, I don't like this feeling of I don't want to call it being disabled, but that's just what it is. So I'm going to do everything in my power to not feel like that anymore. And then everyone says if you don't use it, you lose it. So I
Mm-hmm.
just want to keep my body in motion, but it helps me out very mentally more than anything. I come from a family, a very blessed family, not a bad family, but a family that doesn't really believe in talking about your emotions. So I threw my emotions into fitness, and it helped me, and it became a great outlet. I did learn how to talk about my emotions through therapy and everything, but I stayed with fitness and being able to use it. And I don't ever think that I'm inspiring people, but it's on the regular that people come up to me and they're like, "Damn, you have every excuse in the world, but you're here at 5 in the morning, you're here at 6 in the morning, working out hard." And it really comes down to, there's people, I have friends who, I may have one leg, but I have a friend, a very good friend, one of my best friends, who has only 3 digits on both of his hands, and he's missing a left leg. So it could always be worse. And there's things that I talk about all the time. Man, if I had 2 legs, I can do this. Man, if this was this, if, like the what ifs, the whys. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really just, this is what I have. I need to make no excuses. I need to embrace my physical disability, and I need to adapt. And so that's what I've done my entire life. So sports is a way for me to just prove that I can continuously adapt, and that I can release that competitive bug in me. If I'm able to lift 100 pounds, if I'm able to lift 200 pounds, I could do 210 pounds or whatever it may be. But it fitness for me is just another way of rounding out my day, but also reminding myself that I've came a long way. I'm coming on 15 years of being a amputee. So I lost my leg at 16, going on 15 years living without it. So I'm almost to the point in my life where I've hadn't had a leg longer than I've had a leg, and I definitely remember not having a leg more than having 2 legs. So I'm just in this period of my life where it's like, you know what? We're pushing forward, and I'm a husband, I'm a father, and so being able to just, tell my daughter to stop being lazy at volleyball practice because I have one leg and I'm not lazy. So it's little things like that that just help me. But cannabis, I believe all athletes can benefit from cannabis. I launched an athlete program at my last dispensary called the Chronic Athlete Program, where I sponsored skateboarders, parkour athletes, professional scooter riders, rollerbladers, basketball players, because they push their body to the limit. They fall, they take bangs, they have cuts. And the first thing that they want to do when they're done having fun is not be in pain. And a lot of people choose plants over pills. And that's a big thing that I believe. So being able to be a full on stoner nerd all day, every day, but then go and break the stigma of being lazy is something that I pride myself on, because that's the number one thing that people love to hate on cannabis consumers, is that you're lazy. And that's, I'm not lazy. I work harder than you every single day. And there's a lot of us who work harder than everyone every single day. And for the most part, cannabis helps us, give us that little oomph throughout the day to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love it. And you know what? I believe that everyone, if they get out and walk their dog, or if they get out and run, or if they go to the gym, or even if they just do something that's gonna benefit their body, you will see the benefits unfold throughout the rest of your life. And it
Yeah.
comes down to just basic, you know, determination and consistency. Life is about just showing up. I learned in college that if you just show up and do your work, you're gonna get by.
Yep.
Like, and that's like the base level. Like, you show up, you do your work every day, you're gonna get by, you're gonna do fine. It's coming to putting that extra effort and oomph that separates you throughout the crowd. But um, you know, cannabis and fitness, I believe, is an area in the industry or in the community that has tons of room to expand. If you know Glasshouse Brands, we sponsored a basketball team, and we almost went undefeated for the entire season. We
Yep.
lost the championship game. But you know, those guys smoked before the game, they smoked after the game, and they are elite athletes.
Yep.
You look at Michael Phelps, look at
Yep.
everyone, like athletes use cannabis all the time. And I'm glad that, you know, the NBA has changed their rules, the MLB has changed their rules, allowing players to consume, allowing players to invest in cannabis businesses. So we've came a long way, and we definitely need to continue. But like Christopher said, cannabis is medicine 100% all day, every day. And I think we just need more people to help break the stigma. And it starts with education, and amazing webinars like we're doing here is how we get there. And it's everyone just speaking up. If someone talks bad about cannabis or tries to argue with an inaccurate fact, you know, there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I would double check that fact, or maybe it's actually this, or maybe this, or try this. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a long way to go, but
Yeah, be
you
like, I
know,
don't know about that. Maybe look at it this way, or
yes, exactly,
I have a
exactly.
different viewpoint that you might want to consider. One
And
of
you
the
don't
things
have to
I
be
love to
abrasive
do
about it. Go
is
ahead, go ahead.
like a beach cleanups, and
Hmm.
we're out there, wearing our cannabis t-shirts, and we're out there picking up like hundreds of pounds of trash, and people be like, oh, thank you, for cleaning up the beach. And it's like, but we're the lazy stoners cleaning up
Yeah,
the beach
yeah.
in the morning, and they're just chilling, but we're doing the work,
Yeah.
so it's
And
like,
that's what the LBCA did.
yeah.
We've done over 40 beach cleanups, and the idea was is that yes, we are cannabis businesses. Yes, we are cannabis consumers, but we love Long Beach. We love this
Mhm.
city just like everyone else. So yes, just because we believe in a plant more than you might doesn't mean we have to have this conflict that is something we care about. Everyone should love the beach. If you don't love the beach and you don't care about the environment, there's bigger things you need to worry about than cannabis.
Yeah, and
Uh,
we're not lazy. We
yeah,
might use cannabis, but we don't just sit around and watch TV. We get out there and we're active, and this
yeah,
doesn't keep us on our couches at all whatsoever. Let's change the stigma, and we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. So,
exactly.
yeah. Well, this is another thing that's just, very inspirational about you. So I just, love that you talked about this, and definitely follow Steven on TikTok if you want to see some of his really cool videos of him and his friends, lifting weights. If you need some inspiration, like why you don't have any excuses to be sitting at home, just watching TV. If you can watch TV, you can watch TV like on the treadmill. Okay. Like that's what I always say, like literally.
Yeah,
So that's great. And then can you also share some tips with us as well?
yeah. Um, when it comes to finding what cannabis product is going to help you, I'm going to start off with flower. Is going to be your nose knows. Follow your nose. Smell the product if you're allowed to, if that dispensary allows it. But if something smells good in your nose, you're most likely going to like it a lot. If something doesn't smell good to you, if it doesn't react properly, if you don't like those terpenes, I would probably say stay away from it, or try it at your own expense, knowing that it could be a different experience. It could be something brand new. When it comes to tinctures, I try them all. Try them all, try a dose. But remember, with that medicinal product, you're not looking to get super stony. You're not looking to get really high. It's really for that, I'd say, systemic relief throughout your entire body is what tinctures go for. So I have my grandma on tinctures. I've given them to my mom's friends. So tinctures are great. And then also with the rubs, when it comes to CBD rubs, or when it comes to CBD infusion rubs or THC, make sure that that cream gets through all 5 layers of your skin. Some people just put it on the top, they rub it, and then they kind of let it go. No, you need to massage the cream into your skin so that you can feel the relief. And then when it comes to dabs, no hot dabs. You don't need to take a hot dab. Let's get nice, cool, tasty dabs. You don't need to burn your throat. And I always say try to get better rosin if you can, but I love batter. There's nothing against it. Find what works for you. And then with edibles, I stress go low and start slow. My first edible experience ever, I had a Snickerdoodles cookie. It was about the size of my thumb, and I went to outer space. It was during a Super Bowl game, and
Was it
I just
Corova?
remember, huh?
Was it a Corova? Remember the Corovas used to be like 5,000 milligrams?
Oh no, this one was just, that's why I'm saying this one was just homemade, but I don't even think it was as strong as it could have been. But I felt like the hand of God pushed me into the couch, and then I turned over and I said, I feel it. And I was high for a solid 24 hours. But start low, go slow, try all different kinds, but understand that a brownie or a chocolate cookie based edible is going to hit you differently than a gummy is, or than a fast acting gummy, or from a drink. They're going to have different effects.
Yeah.
So just journal.
The human body is really interesting. When we eat an edible or a drink, and our body, when we digest it, our body turns it to delta 11 hydroxy THC,
yes,
which is stronger than delta 9 THC, and so that's why 5 milligrams feels like probably 20 milligrams. So it's way stronger than like taking 5 milligrams of inhaled THC or like a sublingual, and so that's why you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Which,
it's about like 5 times stronger. That's what people say.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it feels that way. So
Which can be good for some conditions, like trying to replace pain medications, like in your instance. But for other instances, can be a lot for some people. So those are all really good tips, and I love the one about hot dabs too. So
and then on that note, it was just funny. I had a podcast last week that we filmed, and one of the guys, one of our guests, he said that he doesn't understand taking dabs. He says it's so extra, no one needs it. You might as well just go do the hard stuff. That's what he said. And I said, well, what if someone's
hard stuff?
Yeah, well, so I politely stopped him. I said, well, as someone who deals with chronic pain, or someone who is a cancer patient, or someone who is at that state, they need that much amount of THC to enter their body. And it's not just to be the highest in the room.
Yeah.
It's so that they can be the most functionable version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I just want to remind people to do that.
Because it's like you can get as much THC as smoking a whole joint, yet you're not as like, I have a lot clearer head with the dab, so I get as much THC as a joint, but I don't have like the fogginess of smoking a joint. So
it's a cleaner experience.
Experience, but you get the same amount of THC. So thank you for defending us, Steven, dab consumers. But before we give everybody your contact information, we have 2 questions that come in. Do you have just a couple minutes to answer those? Perfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So somebody is asking you, in specific terpene, are there specific terpenes that you look for in terms of inflammation or pain relief?
I don't say so. Lavender in general, linalool. I use that when I take a bath. That's the one terpene that I know helps me when I soak in it, but also when I consume it. I really like, oh wow, I can't believe I'm blanking right now. Myrcene. I really like myrcene.
Myrcene is a pretty strong pain relieving.
That funky one. And then pinene. Those are just all typically found in like really good OGs and indicas that I kind of lean towards. I wouldn't say that it helps me specifically with inflammation, but I do feel the most relief systemically when I consume those terpenes. So anything that's a true true indica or an OG or like a Kush, those really help me. But I really love the candies, and I love the delicious flavor cannabis as well. But that's just what works for me right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good question and great answers. That's a good one. And I do feel like in the future, we're going to be moving away from indica sativa hybrid and more
Yes.
towards by terpenes. So these are the kind of questions people are going to be asking in the future. So that's a good question.
As a
Good answer.
cannabis marketer, as a professional cannabis marketer, I feel like it's my duty to move away from THC and to highlight terpenes. Because
Yeah.
THC doesn't matter. What's funny is now the new 30% THC, the new 20% THC is the old 30% THC.
Yeah.
So 20 is the new 30,
Yeah.
which is so funny to say. But yes, I believe we need to go to terpenes and feelings. Like, how are you going to feel? Am I going to feel calm? Am I going to feel energetic? Am I going to feel, enlightened? Am I going to feel active? What are those going to bring me? I feel like that's what cannabis marketers need to lean in towards with products versus indica sativa hybrid.
Because that's what people want to know too, because they just look at a
Yeah,
board with
yeah.
all these names, and a lot of times the names are just like pulled out of a hat too. Like, hey, think of like this name that's going to make people want to buy it, So
Yeah.
like, really, it's like people are really just looking for like this all doesn't make sense. So like, I want to feel this way. So point me towards one that will deliver me these effects, because that's what I want to spend my money on. So give me that, or I'm not coming back.
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
All right. So the other question, someone's saying, "Hello, Steven. I met you at Pharmacy Santa Ana." They're saying, "I didn't recognize you without your beanie."
Yeah. I always wear a hat or a beanie.
Yeah. They're
Always.
saying your story is very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. They want to know about tinctures. For severe pain, do you think that tinctures with a higher concentration are better for severe pain? As well as, do you think that tinctures with a higher concentration are better for or better for pain? I guess are better for pain than flower or gummies.
So I would say,
Do you think? I guess like, do you think the tinctures are better?
I would say tinctures are the best non-invasive option. That's how I like to put it. I don't I you'll probably feel the effects of tinctures as a very slow like an airplane taking off, very
Mm-hmm.
slow, linear, but it'll get you to where you're going. It's going to be that medicinal long-term relief.
Yeah.
And like with flower, say you're smoking a flower that, we'll just hypothetically, it's 25% THC. You're only going to smoke about 10% of that THC. So you're only going to get a certain amount of effect. So flower versus that tincture or versus a gummy, which converts into 11 hydroxy, is going to be different. So I always say, if you're in a lot of pain, go with an edible. That's how I like
Mm-hmm.
to do it. That's what I like to say. If you're in severe pain, you can always, like, it's easy to take 10 milligrams at a time. Like, plus take one gummy. You don't feel it, take another gummy. Just increments, titrate how you're going to feel. But if I were to tell someone, if you're a cancer patient and you're in severe pain, I would say go with gummies. If you
Yeah.
can't, go with some in a higher dose gummies, depending on where you're at in your treatment. But for me, edibles are always going to be the safest, and I say the healthiest way, besides like the rosin and stuff. But gummies are going to be great.
Yeah. And like also like with the gummies, maybe like mix it with some fat too.
Yeah, yeah.
So that it'll like, because cannabis binds to fat. So like if you're gonna eat a gummy, like eat it with something that's gonna help it bind to some fat, So
Mm.
some chocolate, or like I've heard like people say like coconut oil or something
Yeah,
like
that's what I
that.
was gonna
Like,
say.
it will help that gummy just, bind to something and just, make it digest a little bit better, get better bioavailability. Also maybe like if you're like a person that's in severe pain, it wouldn't hurt to like, I just like think like take a tincture every day. Like it wouldn't be a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
idea to space like every day, every morning to start with the tincture. And then like you said, like edibles, because they turn into that delta 11 hydroxy, because they last so long, like they are going to be like the strongest, like
Hmm.
add it on, but like base tincture in the morning, add that edible, because it is going to be stronger and have more effect. But like that tincture internally will probably help like relieve, like bring the inflammation down, which is like the base of the pain.
Yeah,
So
and And if people want to consume like flower, what I love to do is I love to roll up a joint right when I'm about to spark my joint. I eat a gummy or I eat
There you
an
go.
edible, and then I'll smoke it, and then the edible carries me through the high. So the joint
There you go.
gets me there, and
Yeah.
then the edible carries me. So I just love doing that as a
Yeah.
consumer, and I love helping people get high. So
Yeah,
if
so
that
it's like
helps,
right
let
when
me know.
this high dips off, this one's
Yes.
taking off. So
Mhm.
it's like
Cheat code. Cheat
I
code.
love it. I love it. You know, for the people like the graphs, you know. That's awesome. Cool. So those are the two questions that we had come in through the audience. So that's been wonderful. So can you share some contact information for us with us? So anybody that wants
Yes.
to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Everyone can contact me through social media. My handle is Stephen J is Filthy. My middle name is Joshua, so Stephen Joshua is Filthy. My email is the same as my handle, kind of trying to keep on brand. And then my work email is scontreras at glasshousegroup.com. I'd love to collaborate with people. If anyone is looking to do anything with our 3 retail chains, that's something that me and Candace could work on with you together. Or if you want to get some really cool brand content or maybe visit the farm, let me know. But there's tons of things we can do together. Let's all be friends, and let's all be friends of the farm.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. This has been like really inspirational and really informative. This has been a really great webinar to add to our collection. Like I said, we've reviewed the scientific research. We've had one about breast cancer, and then now we're talking about post-cancer recovery. And I love that we've added on to it fitness, because I think that's really important to it, because it's not just about cannabis. You also
Yeah.
have to have lifestyle changes. It's also very mental. And all of this works together, you know, to improve your life and your lifestyle and your health and your
Quality of
wellness,
life. Yeah.
your quality of life. So this has all been really, you know, helpful. And I hope that, you know, everybody has really enjoyed the information that we've, you know, shared with everybody. And I really want to thank you for, you know, sharing this information with us and being a really great guest
No
today.
problem. Thank you. It was my pleasure, honor. And now I'm going to go take a fat dab.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you to the marketing team for helping to make this possible and getting the information out to everybody. I hope that we were able to share some information with everybody that will make you better informed cannabis consumers, and that this information will help you find relief. We look forward to seeing you in the future for another episode of the Friends of the Farm lecture series. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.